So current state of the KLH Model 27 is I downloaded the schematics and I downloaded the circuit board diagrams with a block diagram. So lots of pages of schematics, and this is online as one giant schematic, so I had to cut it up into smaller chunks. And so what that means is for every board diagram you have a schematic. So I've been kind of going through and marrying these up, and I did start to test for voltages on the power supply. Power supply was good, and I stopped and I thought, well, maybe I should just feed a tone into the KLH and see where the tone is dying, right? So I sent a 1 kilohertz test tone into what I thought was the auxiliary jacks in the back, but because I was doing this upside down, I was actually feeding it into the tape monitor. So, and I want to explain that because when I fed the jacks through the tape monitor, thinking it was the auxiliary jack, naturally on auxiliary I had no sound, and I had nothing on my oscilloscope. When I hit the tape monitor button, suspecting the tape monitor button was dirty, I got sound through the oscilloscope. And I thought, oh, okay, it's a bad tape monitor switch. So I took the switch apart. I took the switch apart. I had to remove this bracket here. I had to pull the switch up to where I could kind of get to the holes in the back and then clean them out, because I don't think I really did a good job cleaning them last time. So the issue with that is it took a lot of time, and I did shoot all that video, but it didn't have any effect. So I started looking at the block diagram, trying to figure out, okay, I've got sound on tape monitor and the sound is not good. So there's definitely something, I believe there's something in the amp section that I need to address. But looking over the circuit board, or the block diagram for the receiver, if you look at auxiliary AM FM phono, they move through a selector switch, right? So they're either coming at the selector switch directly or through a switchboard, but none of these are producing any sound. Phono is producing kind of sketchy sound, but we're going to sit on that for a second. If you look at the block diagram, everything but tape monitor goes through the selector switch, the switchboard, right, and the preamp. The tape monitor does not go through the preamp. It bypasses the preamp directly into the control board and then into the power amp. Now, nothing, from what I can see, nothing has been changed in here. No electrolytics have been changed, so these are originals. This is the preamp board. It's a small board. It looks to be pretty easy to get to. But I think what I'm going to do first is recap the preamp board. And through the process of recapping it, since there aren't many transistors or capacitors, and I don't have anything to replace the film caps, I'm just going to start with the electrolytics. I'm going to test these as I pull them out, and I wouldn't be surprised if there are issues with those electrolytics. Kind of my goal here is to rule out the preamp as the source of the issue in terms of not having any sound through auxiliary AM FM phono. And again, this is a restoration, so I plan on recapping and retransistorizing everything anyway. So I'll start with the preamp. I'm going to see what that gets me. Then I'll move on to the control board, right? Because, well, if I don't get any sound here, then I'll have to look at selector switch, switchboard, right? But I've already cleaned these switches. Selector switch, I've cleaned the selector switch. So to me it would make sense to go to the control board, but it kind of depends on what I find, what shakes out. So the next video will be of me taking this preamp board out. I still don't know if these jumpers can just be pulled or not. So it will be of me pulling this preamp board out, hopefully, or at least getting it into a position where I can replace those electrolytics. And hopefully I have modern, suitable replacements for the transistors. Right. So that's the way ahead. And then we'll go from there. I still think there is an issue, maybe not necessarily with the outputs, but the amp section, and I need to look at the schematics to figure out what's going on with that. Just because I do get very distorted, very weak sound out of the tape monitor, but it could be something else as well. So that's what I'm going to be working on, and we'll see what happens when I get that board recapped. Just want to explain, I mean, it's pretty apparent what I did. So I was able to remove those. I thought about removing the pins from this side, or the wires from this side off of the pins, but this will provide me access so I can do what I need to do from this side here. This is probably maybe a late 60s vintage receiver, so I've got to be careful, I mean, with this board not to burn any traces, break any traces off. So now I'm going to go on to removing these electrolytics and see if I have some replacement transistors. So I wanted to just put a breakpoint in there because those first two 100 microfarad capacitors measured 500 and 616. So yeah, it's a good idea to replace all this stuff. So I won't stop with any more unless I find a shorter one or something. I'll just talk about it afterwards. But yeah, I'm thinking all these electrolytics are going to be way out of spec. So capacitors have been replaced. The transistors are some oddball transistors, and I'll have to kind of do some research to see if I can even find modern replacements. I'm sure I can, it's just going to take a while. These aren't the run-of-the-mill kind of transistors that you find in other units, so all I can do for right now is replace the capacitors, and they were all like crazy out of spec. They were all 5 times or more what the rated capacitance was as stamped on the cases. So for example, the hundreds were all 500, 600. The 10s were 40s and 50s. Now this has 25 microfarad 15 volt, or 25 microfarad 10 volt. Yeah, I don't have any of those. And I did a quick search on Mauser, and Mauser didn't have, well, I think they had some film caps. But in looking at the schematic, I think I can get away with 33 microfarad capacitors in there. So I normally don't ever mess with changing capacitance, except for maybe on like filter caps. But and that's only after someone else had suggested it, or one of the pros on like Audio Karma suggest a a certain type of cap. So capacitors have been replaced in the preamp. Transistors have not. I need to see if I can find those. So now I'm going to reconnect all the wires and do a sound check. Even though I shoot video for these repairs, and I have had to reference what I've done in the past, I've had removing things bite me, and I've had labeling things or mislabeling things bite me. So anymore, I do either a note and a picture, or a picture, and then I always verify that I have everything properly reinstalled before I try anything else. So I'm going to anticipate those aren't the only bad capacitors that are way out of spec. These are bad. These are bad. These are bad. I do want to see, though, if that produces a change. I want to see if we can get some sound out of it. Oh, and this thing goosed me. I don't know if you saw me pull my hand back. I thought it was unplugged. I still have it plugged into my dim bulb tester, which I'm an idiot for doing that. So, got to be careful when you do this. Again, like my disclaimer says, don't do anything that I do. So this is connected to speakers, and let's see if we get any sound out of this thing. So right now it's on FM. Hey, I'm getting sound. Sound out of both channels. Crappy, super crappy sound, but progress. All right, I love progress. So again, I anticipate, like I mentioned when I was going through the block diagram, I just got to grab it here off my table if I can find it. So many pieces of paper here with this. Oh, here it is. Okay, so we have sound, so that's good. So this switchboard, there are no capacitors on that switchboard, but this control board has, you can see it has several capacitors in here. So I'm going to go on to the tone control board next. I'm probably going to have to shoot that in a separate video. That's going to be pretty involved, but I do want to get kind of how I take that apart captured on camera. So hey, we have sound, so that's good. We've made some progress on this one. So if you like what you see, hit like, hit subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video where we go into recapping the tone control board, and hopefully by then I can figure out some replacements for the transistors in this unit. So see you next time.